1 in 9, 1 in 9, do you know? Do you know? 1 in 9, 1 in 9, do you know?
Hey, welcome to the Let's Talk About Us show. This is a Minutes with God Community Network interview, and today we're going to be talking about health, a topic that some people are scared to talk about, some people shy away from, but I got two wonderful guests here, and they're going to share about what they do. But before we begin, I want you to take a look at this clip.
26 million Americans, that's 1 in 9 adults, have kidney disease, and 90% don't even know it. It is responsible for more deaths each year than breast cancer or prostate cancer. We not giving up, we gon' win. We are warriors, champions. We not giving up, we gon' win. We are warriors, champions. 1 in 9, 1 in 9, do you know? Do you know? 1 in 9, 1 in 9, do you know? Do you know?
Okay, welcome back. So I hope you enjoyed that. Wow, what a intro to what you guys do. I really enjoyed that. Can you guys just take it from there? Tell me a little bit about how you guys got started in this 1 in 9 journey.
Well, like you saw in the clip, I mean, this really caught us off guard when Raymond's kidneys failed at the age of 29. And over the years, all of the twists and turns and ups and downs and things that we had to encounter, we learned along the way. We didn't know ahead of time, or, we would go through different hospitalizations or different issues, and people go, oh yeah, that's pretty common. Well, we didn't know that was, common for someone that had kidney disease when it was on dialysis. And when we heard the statistics, at the time back in 2015, that 26 million Americans, or 1 in 9 adults, have kidney disease, yet 90% don't know it. That was completely, unacceptable to me. And so we started talking about, what can we do differently? What could Raymond have done differently if he knew? So how can we help empower others to maybe take from our journey and take from the knowledge that we've learned over the years, again, to help people avoid a journey like Raymond's? And so that was really the catalyst right there.
Yeah, I was looking at that statistic, and I was like, this is kind of scary, because when I was watching your guys' first podcast, I noticed that how you guys kind of got started was that Raymond had a cough. And then he went to the doctors, and then from the doctors, he thought he was bulletproof. He thought he was going to get an antibiotic, and he was just going to be able to go home. And the doctor came out and tested the blood pressure, and it was, you're not going home, sir. And I was like, whoa, from a cough to this report, this is insane. But before I get to you, Raymond, because I want to hear that from you, because you were coming out of the military and stuff. And it seems like you're just this honorable person. And I want to just hear, how you thought you were bulletproof, and your thoughts, and your processing this at the time. But just for our viewers to know, I don't normally do a podcast or an interview on different things apart from scripture. But I wanted to read a couple of scriptures, because I do a Christian a worldview on these podcast journeys, or these interviews that I do. And it says this in 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in you? And I felt this podcast to be so important, or this interview to be so important, because a lot of people take their body for granted, and they take their health for granted until they come into unexpected situation. And I feel that even God covers this topic. He's like, hey, I've given you life, and hey, I want you to be healthy with your life. Use what I've given you. And it's funny, because this scripture comes from Paul in Corinthians, and Corinthians were a really stubborn people in a lot of ways. So when I saw this, I was like, hey, you know what? I think we're kind of stubborn when it comes to our health as well. So this part of the factors, I just think this is just so important, how it ties in together. And so anyways, enough with that. Raymond, let me get to you. Talk to me.
Yes. Right. When I got out of the military, I thought I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I was still actually running in the mornings. And just after time, I went to her house, and I was coughing really badly. And this went on for a couple days.
Right.
And she was like, hey, you need to go get that cough have somebody look at that cough. So of course, me being the man that I am and was, I immediately went 3 days later to get this cough
3 days of my
taken.
nag.
And went to the urgent care, and the nurse took my blood pressure twice with the machine, once with the manually, and ran out of the room. I'm like, where is she going? It's just a blood pressure. Came back with the doctor, and he was like, do you have any tightness in your chest or a headache or anything? And I said, no. And that's when he was like, hey, your blood pressure is 280 over 180 or something?
270 over 190.
270 over 190. Wow. So by the time he said, look, I called an ambulance and they're going to take you to the hospital. You can't go to work. And in my mind, I was like, I just came there for some medication, some antibiotics for bronchitis. And he was like, you're going in an ambulance. The ambulance came and they rolled me outside. And not only was the ambulance there, but fire rescue was there too. And I was like, man, a fire truck? I mean, what's going on? It's just a blood pressure. And it didn't hit me how dangerously high this blood pressure was. So they took me to the hospital, did blood work, urinalysis. Doctor came back and was like, Mr. Scott, your kidneys have failed. Wow. And I set you up for surgery, and you're going to do dialysis tonight. And in my mind, I was like, you know, what is dialysis? Because I never knew anyone who was on dialysis. No one in my family, or so I thought, was on dialysis or had renal disease. So, then what?
You know, it was, I remember getting that call from Raymond because we were only dating for 3 months. And we had a date night scheduled for that night. And so when he called me from the hospital, it was definitely shocking. And we didn't really know what to expect. But one thing that, you know, throughout this entire journey has been just continue to lock arms and just take one step, you know, let's just put one foot in front of the other. Because I really have to, you know, just you're talking about Raymond's character. I knew even in that 3 months what a great guy he was. And on the way home from the hospital, he told me he was going to move back home from Phoenix. We live in Phoenix, and he was going to move back to Charleston, South Carolina. I said, why?
Yeah.
And he's 29 at the time. I was 23. And he said, I know I have a long road ahead of me, and you're too young for this. This isn't fair to you. And I remember like, you're a good man. Like, you don't need to go anywhere. Let's see what happens with our relationship. And he thanked me. He said, well, I'm glad you said that. I was hoping you would say that, but I had to give you an out. And from that moment forward, it was, again, lock arms, one foot in front of the other. And so as different things would come up, we were together. And then, like, you know, and I'm glad too that you brought the scripture into it, because without God, we would not be where we are today. And he has definitely led us and been there to comfort and support us throughout this whole journey.
And I have to say that when that doctor sat before me and gave me that news, and I was just thinking, you know, so how long do I have to live? And I have to admit, I wasn't brave enough to even ask him how long I had to live. I was just trapped in this frightening stance that I couldn't hear a word he was saying. He was trying to explain what dialysis was and the different modalities, but I couldn't hear him. All I saw was his lips moving, and that was a constant thought in my mind. How long do I have to live? And how long can I live with this? Not only what is it, but how long do I have to live?
Yeah, that's just so powerful. Talk about an awesome helpmate to take on this journey, and talk about you just want to be like, hey, let me give her an out. Like, I could understand that totally. And so that's great to hear your guys's your story in that way. And then so some people don't know what dialysis is, or they don't know what a normal blood pressure should be. So tell me a little bit of what you've learned.
So I think we'll both kind of piggyback on this. So, you know, normal blood pressure is around 110 over 70, 120 over 80 is ideal. And Raymond knew that he had high blood pressure. He was taking his medication. but he wasn't checking his blood pressure. So he didn't realize that it was creeping up, and obviously at that dangerous range, he couldn't feel it. So high blood pressure is the second leading cause of kidney disease. Diabetes is the leading cause. Those two combined are responsible for over 2/3 of the patients with kidney disease and with kidney failure. Raymond didn't know those statistics, right? He didn't know that
Right.
African Americans are nearly, between 3.5 to 4 times more likely than someone like me to have kidney disease. So those were things not even on his radar. Right?
No, not clearly. And the kidneys are responsible for a lot of functions in the body. It tells the body when to make more red blood cells, controlling the blood pressure, not only through removing fluids and waste in the blood, but also adding things that will help the body to know that, okay, this blood pressure is kind of high. We need to start to balance. But the kidneys are responsible for a lot of functions in the body. So when you lose that use of the kidneys, then you have to go on to other medications and things that would help your body and alert your body when to create those red blood cells to control the blood pressure itself. So the kidneys are responsible for a lot of things in the body.
That is so good. I'm going to probably take an insert of what your kidneys are to your body, how important that is. And I'll probably put it on this when I re-edit this video. I think that's great because I don't know much about my kidneys. I know I have some kidneys, but or a kidney. I don't even know how many you're supposed to have in your body.
Yeah. And I can share a little.
Yeah, too, right? Okay.
Yeah, and there's a video, since you're editing this, there's a video that we have on there too on our YouTube channel with Dr. Roby. She explains the kidneys really well. So you feel free to, if you want to pull some footage from that might be a really good one.
Awesome.
But just to add what Raymond was saying, he didn't know what dialysis was. He not only did he not know what all of those things would do for his kidney function, he didn't know when the doctor said dialysis, he's like, what is this? So even today, when we talk to people about, we really are passionate about bringing awareness to kidney disease. And and so many people don't even really know necessarily even one fact about kidney disease. They've maybe heard about dialysis, and a lot of times people will equate kidney disease with dialysis. Right. Dialysis is like a renal replacement therapy. So there's 5 stages of kidney disease. Stages 1 through 3, 1 through 4, you can still slow down, sometimes reverse, but once you get to stage 5, that's kidney failure, and you need to go on dialysis or have a transplant to survive. So imagine.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Does this have to do with with your diet or genetics, or maybe both?
You know what? It's a combination, but it honestly, because when you look at kidney disease, there's many different factors. So people could have, like I mentioned, diabetes and high blood pressure are the 2 leading causes. So if you look at that and you want to take a look just right there, there's people that may be predisposed, maybe from genetics, but a lot of it I would say is from our food and diet and what we're doing. Just the way we're seeing diabetes and high blood pressure skyrocketing, therefore we're seeing kidney disease skyrocket. And it's not necessarily because suddenly our genes have changed, but look at what else has in the food and things that we're putting into our bodies is a huge component, or even what we're not putting into our bodies, right? We live here in the desert, not drinking enough water, being dehydrated. But and then of course there are different kidney diseases that are more genetic. So polycystic kidney disease, FSGS, there's people that may be born with different types of abnormalities. And so it can affect people of all ages, of all races, of all backgrounds. Doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is either. It can affect anybody, but we are seeing a lot more, especially in urban areas where, if you drive through, there's food deserts. You'll see a lot of grocery stores or healthy grocery stores, and you'll see a lot of dialysis clinics in those areas. And so, I would be remiss if we weren't highlighting that and saying that, there's certain, there are some ties, there's some links and
So
I think
important. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you on that, but yeah, and then you were going back to the stages because I thought that was just important because I
yeah,
want to give hope. I don't
edit
want
this
somebody
however
to
you
click.
want.
Yeah, I didn't want somebody to click and be like, you know what, I'm going to click this. There's no hope for me. There's some hope in what you eat, and I think because you said something about reversing the situation. There is a stage where there's a possibility to reverse it, or there's more hope in that area.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's always things that you can do with awareness, and
Yeah.
just knowing your body, knowing things that are good to eat and not to eat. So when folks, if they're having a decline in their kidney function, they can certainly cut out more of the, and it shouldn't even be, I'm even going to back that up a little bit. It doesn't even have to be someone that has a problem with their kidneys. Just in general, we should be cutting out more of the sugary drinks or the sugar that's in our diet. We should be cutting back on the processed foods, which, everything seems to be processed now. Go to plant-based diet. Like, I'm not saying be vegan or vegetarian, we're not, but plant-based. Look at, what God has provided us from the earth that
that's right.
to be more nutritious for our bodies, and not all these foods that are out there that are fake foods or, processed with these different chemicals. Anything you put in your mouth, anything that you're eating, anything you're drinking, your body has to process, and that goes through your kidneys. So
see, I think that part is so important. Yeah. So I did all my my bad eating before I had this video, because I was like, because I'm gonna be more consciously aware now after I walk away from this interview of what to eat. But so tell me a little bit about the experience of dialysis. I know a vendor that comes into our store because I work in retail, and he's a young guy, and I asked him, what does he do on his free time, on the weekends and stuff. And he says, I do dialysis. And my heart broke. I was like, oh my goodness, you were so young, bro. I said, and my grandma, she's old and she's on dialysis. So tell me a little bit about what dialysis is.
So dialysis basically is the filtration of your blood through a machine, and they use a filter, and that's considered the kidney of the machine. So that kidney of the machine, or the filter, separates the blood or removes the waste and the fluids that you may have on board. Now, when this happens, it also removes some of the good stuff, meaning like protein and stuff like that. So you have to, it's kind of awkward because you have to, once you're on dialysis, you have to eat more proteins. Prior to when you have renal disease, then you should, not eat as much proteins as you would if you're on dialysis. But because it's removing both the good and the bad, and be it vitamins and minerals that you also need, you have to take supplements to cover that up or to add to your body so that you're not starving yourself in one way by cleaning your blood. But basically it's taking those fluids off, and you're aiming for each treatment a dry weight that's comfortable for you, wherein you're not cramping afterwards and you're not feeling drug out and low down. Even though it is very hard on the body, it's almost like running a marathon, because after you're completed with the treatment, most people, it takes them a while to recover from that. For me, it took me about 8 hours to recover from that when I was in center dialysis, that is. And there are many different modalities of dialysis. There's peritoneal dialysis, which you're basically putting fluid into your peritoneum or your abdomen. And there is a gap in between the organs and your muscle here. And what happens is it removes It does the same as the machine. It's
Mhm.
just done inside the body. And then this
Mhm.
fluid, you do exchanges during the day, or you sleep doing this treatment at night while you're sleeping. A machine takes out the bad fluid, and that's waste, and it puts in good fluid so that you're getting dialysis while you sleep. So that's
Mm.
peritoneal dialysis. Then you have transplant. Transplant is the ultimate goal of most dialysis patients. And of course, myself, but some people aren't able to have transplants. So they have
Mm.
other things that they can do. One being home hemodialysis, which is basically the same as in-center, but it's a different machine. It's done slower, and it's more frequent treatments. And what they found was more frequent treatments on dialysis actually helps you to live
Mm.
longer, and it stabilizes you better. But I can tell you that me doing home hemodialysis has changed my life, and I've done it for the past 9 years. But those are the
Wow.
types of dialysis, and that's what it encompasses.
Yeah. Wow.
Add to that, just to kind of give your audience a little more of a glimpse into that.
Yeah.
Raymond doesn't urinate. So anything he drinks or has, to get those fluids out of his body, he has to have dialysis. And a lot of people don't really recognize that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when he's talking about that dry weight and all of those things, and, Raymond shared something. We had an event at our church recently where we shared our documentary with the audience, and it was so moving and it really eye-opening to the congregation, and people were sharing things, and Raymond, we were speaking afterwards, and something that he said stood out that I think will make a big difference for your audience as well. And that was, he said, it's much easier to get disciplined about your health now while you're healthy or relatively healthy. You don't want to have to go through what he has, because being on dialysis, you have to be extremely disciplined in everything you eat, everything you drink, and it really, we don't let dialysis take over our life. We work that into our life. And so we've been blessed, like you said, to be able to do this from home. When we're done with this interview, we're going to go into our family room and we're going to be able to do his dialysis treatment here, which is really a blessing. But again, we are so passionate about helping people keep their kidneys. And I think it's important to know, that the numbers. So when we started with 1 to 9 back in 2015, it was 26 million Americans. Now it's here in 2022, it's 37 million Americans. And we've heard numbers even higher. And it's estimated by 2030 to be up to 80 million Americans, which is insane. And so currently it's 1 in 3 American adults are at risk for having kidney disease. So, and to put it into perspective, so looking at those numbers of about 37 million people, there's about 750,000 people that have end-stage kidney disease, meaning they're on dialysis or have had a kidney transplant. So think about that. Not everyone's necessarily going to get to dialysis, but where are they? How many of those 90% of the 37 million Americans, or nearly 30 million people, are walking around, don't even know that they have kidney disease, one of the earlier stages. So that's where we want to empower people they have to be their own biggest advocate, and just don't be scared to know your numbers. Like, look at your health, get a baseline on your health so that you can be in charge and be informed.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And again, I think us as Americans in the West, dealing with issues of obesity and dealing with a fast food processing kind of nation, really, we have to be more aware of this kind of stuff. So I'm glad to hear that your church was moved. And again, the whole purpose of this was because I talk normally to a Christian audience, but I think this information is this for everybody. The Bible says that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And I take that kind of scripture and I look at my health life and I'm like, all this ties in together. This is so important. This is around, this is a roundabout thing, because I believe that we serve a God who's a holistic God and views everything as important. So that's great stuff to share. You were talking a little bit earlier about how you were talking about how God kind of just given us the earth, and we're kind of here to, take what belongs to us, use what belongs to us. But I even look at things like kidney disease, cancer, or all health issues as a fallen man issue. So I feel like when the fall of man happened, sin came into the world, all these issues started to come into the world. And I feel like we're trying to navigate through these issues and get back to God's original intention. And I think health is, on that list of so great of importance. And so we've talked about dialysis, we talked about blood pressure, we've talked about, being aware of what we eat and stuff. Raymond, tell me some of the advice that the doctors gave you about dieting and what you should eat after you got this kind of news. What or just advice in general? What were they telling you?
Well, the main thing was to in controlling how much fluids I have on board, because I have to tell you, I've been at
fluid overload.
Fluid overload before, and that felt like I was having a heart attack. So basically, I had so much fluid on board that it was starting to surround my heart.
Put him into congestive heart failure.
Right. And
wow.
Yes. And so that was important. Fluid control is very important. Potassium can make your heart beat irregularly, and it can kill you if you have too much potassium on board. So I had to control my diet and look at what I was putting in, because what I was putting in could traumatically affect my body. So potassium. So I'm gonna tell you, I love tomatoes and bananas, but I gave them up. And I know now that moderation is the key. So I don't deprive myself totally. When I first started, I didn't eat tomatoes or bananas. I took them off the list because I was afraid of those things. And it was just eating in moderation, and of course they told me you can eat as much protein as you want, because you're going to need to, because if your body is lacking protein, then your immune system becomes even more so compromised, because as a dialysis patient, your immune system is compromised anyway. But even more so if you don't have enough protein on board to protect you even more so. So the diet was definitely a challenge, but she gave me so much as far as her intestinal fortitude that I had to repay her with that discipline. I had to be the best dialysis patient I could be. So I stuck to the diet. I watched my fluid intake. So I was doing everything I needed to do. And then I started including exercise in that too, because most dialysis patients don't even feel like they could exercise being on dialysis. But you have to get this blood pumping. It'll help your blood pressure and everything. So
that's so powerful, so important. Something came to mind. I was going to look it up. So this that kind of stuff right there, like potassium. What does potassium do for your body? Tomatoes, and there's so many things that just have to do with just what we consume. Did you take any protein shakes, or were you not able to because of potassium in some of those, or?
No, I didn't. I kind of steered clear of protein shakes for that one reason, because some of it could be loaded with potassium, and they look at it as a healthy human being would be able to filter out this potassium, and kidneys would even out the potassium in the blood. But for me, that's not a chance that I could take. So what I did start doing is more some protein bars that the dietitian has looked over and looked into and made sure that phosphorus is another thing. Phosphorus is in all foods. So mostly dairy especially has a high level of phosphorus. So I had to watch that too, but it was a balanced and even act of eating the things that are good for me and the things that I also like, because I'm the type of person, I eat to live. You know, I live to eat.
He's a foodie.
Big time. And I live to eat. I like different foods and stuff like that. But now I found myself having to, you know, live to eat.
Eat to live.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a balancing act. And if I didn't get this right, it could jeopardize my health in one way or the other. You know, I mean, it wasn't like I was scared to eat some things. It's just that moderation is the key.
And he's been able to incorporate things back in. I mean, we have spaghetti. He'll make spaghetti usually once a week. So he's figured out where the balance is in what he can have. And his labs are great. So being able to do the dialysis from home 5 days a week, or typically when you go in center, you're just going in 3 days a week. So imagine not having functioning kidneys and not being able to urinate for a few days.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that fluid gets on. So your levels of fluid are going kind of up and down. Well, because we're doing it 5 days a week, it's not as much. So he can have more fluids. He doesn't feel deprived. I know when he was in center, he was always thirsty. And so he would put frozen grapes. You know, he'd put those grapes in the freezer and he'd eat frozen grapes, and that would help satisfy somewhat. But now he doesn't really have that issue. He's, you know, just, you know, because his fluids aren't so restrictive. And so it is that balance. And also, you know, you asked to like what the doctors would say. They would give us information along the way, but honestly, it was so much of that trial and error, things that we went through. And sometimes we look at that and go, oh gosh, we wish we would have known this. But sometimes there could be blessings in that we didn't know right away, that the average life expectancy for someone on dialysis is between 5 to 10 years. And he's now, you know, 24 years into this journey. So we didn't know what we didn't know. And we just said, well, let's just keep stepping forward and do what we can. You know, for him to be as healthy as he can. And now, you know, he's working out 4 or 5 days a week, feeling great. I'm trying to keep up with him. And, but I think that's the message we both share, because Raymond also talks to a lot of dialysis patients about some of those different modalities, some of the different options, even doing this from home, and the benefits around that. But so we want to give people hope. It doesn't have to be a death sentence, but my goodness, if we can reach people and help them to keep their kidneys. So from day one, like when we started 1 and 9, our 3 key pillars were awareness, prevention, and regenerative medicine. Because if you know, like you said, knowledge is, you know, knowledge is key, and without it, we can perish, right? So you do want to know. And then know what are the things that are going to be good for you. What are the things that you can prevent? What are the things that you can improve upon for your health? And then, you know, what are the things that you can regenerate? You know, the kidney is not known as a regenerative organ like the liver is, but you can do things that can improve. And we have seen where people have made improvements in their kidney function. So that definitely is possible. And
can you say that part? Can you say that part again? About the kidney being a regenerate. It's not. Is that what you said?
So the kidney is not known as a regenerative organ. So if you look at the liver is a regenerative organ. The kidney is not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that the kidney cannot regenerate. So there are things you can give the kidney that can make it process and filter better when it's working. There are things you can do where you can see improvements in your kidney function. So we have witnessed that with people. And so I think there's been, you know, a lot of thinking, even in the medical profession, where people just think, okay, well, once you've had that kidney damage, or once you're there, there's no recovery. You're not going to improve. Let's try and keep it stable. I'm here to share with people, you can improve. you can make improvements to it. And yeah, like I said, we've seen it with even my mom, who was her kidney function, and other people as well. So that's where we don't want people, even, we've heard folks say it just runs in my family. You know, it runs in our community. We're more prone because it's inevitable that this is going to happen. We see that a lot in, here with some of our neighbors and in some of the Native American communities, where it runs so rampant. And so there is that thought, oh, well, diabetes runs in my family. Oh, kidney disease runs in my family. It's
right.
a matter of when. And so we want to interrupt, we want to disrupt that pattern of thinking and shift the paradigm to say, guess what? We can reverse, our mission is to change the trajectory of kidney disease, which can be done with individuals, families, and communities. But guess what? In order for us to do this, we have to also tap into how can we prevent and reverse diabetes? What can we do to improve people, improve their health with their high blood pressure, and to see those numbers go down, help with heart disease, because kidney disease, heart disease, and diabetes are really known as the triple threat. So if we can address the overall health, your heart's going to be happier, your kidneys are going to be happier, and you're going to have more longevity to do the things that that you desire, or the things that you're called to do while you're living here on this earth.
Yeah. Well, I look up to you guys. You guys are a powerhouse couple, so that is awesome. I think that's a lot to chew. I think that's a lot to digest right there. So we're gonna pause it there. I want to read a couple of thoughts. But Raymond, I salute you, my brother. Man, just that experience and you being able to share. There's some people that'll just go through it and not share their experience. So thank you for stepping out on that. And your wife, your helpmate, just wonderful. Just I could see the hope that she's brought in your situation. Okay. All right. So I wanted to read this before we get to closing. And it says this, Romans 5:4. Well, let's start in 3. It says, not only that, but we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And so you've went through this perseverance stage to this character stage, and now giving this hope of just how people can have hope in this thing. And I'm so glad the doctors didn't tell you the average lifespan of someone going through this. Well, because man, that would have detoured hope. That would have been a derailing for hope. So just glad to see you're a living example of pulling through this. So if there's our audience who are listening, I'm so glad they're able to hear that, because that is so important. Don't lose hope in the middle of the process of this thing. And so your discipline, I'm going to walk away a better man for your example in that. But with anything else to say, would you guys like to share anything else before we head out?
Yeah, I'll share this. And you speak about hope. And I have to tell you, there were some dark moments in my life going through all of this, in which I had conversations with God. My thing was, God, why me? Why must this be my cross to bear? And the thing I got back was, I've given you a wife that'll be your bulldog. I've given you a family and church family who are going to pray for you at each and every moment. So I don't want you to ever ask why me. And that's the answer that I got back. And that's what I take with me. He brought me here for a reason. He did not have me leave yet, because of the work that he wants me to do for other dialysis patients, or patients with just renal disease who are getting close to that. Or not even
people healthy to hear this message, and
so they can
not have to go down this path.
Right. So I have never asked why me again, because I know he's got me, and that's what I live in. That's what we live in. Yeah.
That's so powerful. Why me? So many times we ask that question. Yeah. So has this
one step further? And that's when Raymond shares that, he said many times, just here with us together, he's also said it publicly that if this was his purpose and he could help others, he'd be willing to go back and do it all over again.
Wow, that's powerful.
That's
and
I married this guy, right? I saw these qualities in him, 24 years ago. I was like, you're not going anywhere.
I thought it was my money.
I'm sure too you've learned some different kind of cooking skills. I bet you're an awesome cook. So
I can burn now. Hey, be it stir fry or barbecue or whatever, I can burn. Soul food.
Yeah. Yeah. I work in a grocery store, so I see all these kettle things coming out and all these dietary foods coming out, and I've tapped into some of these things, and I'm like, wow, this stuff can actually be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So I've tried some of these things, and I'm like, man, these are some really good alternatives. You don't know until you really dive in there. So that's great. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for jumping on here. Keep sharing that hope and keep sharing that light that you guys are. What a wonderful powerhouse couple. And so how can they get a hold of you guys if they wanted to use you as a guest speaker or invite you somewhere to share this kind of hope? What can my audience do to tap in with you guys?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, 1in9kidneychallenge.com, or that's our website, 1in9kidneychallenge.com, Facebook, 1in9kidney challenge. You can message us there as well. And we also have our YouTube channel, 1in9, and that's where our podcast is. So a lot of great information and some videos. But yeah, they could definitely reach out to us through Facebook is probably the best way. And yeah, we'd be happy to help in any way possible.
Yeah, there you go. Powerhouse, the informational house right there. Thank you guys again. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
So much
thank you. We
us.
appreciate you, brother.
Keep doing the great work you're doing.
Awesome.
We not giving up. We gon' win. We are warriors, champions. 1in9, 1in9. Do you know? Do you know? 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 1in9, no organization. Ex Raymond and Annalyn on a mission to save lives. Beating the drama, hope the disease is no joke. We are warriors on post. Open your eyes up, have a seat and take notes. 26 million Americans have kidney disease. 90% of us don't even know, so take heed. Combating the triple threat, kidney, heart, and diabetes. Ask the Lord to be with us, cause he supplies every need. 1in9, 1in9. 1in9, 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 1in9. We not giving up.